banks fail liquidity ratio requirements as central bank issues guidelines for licensing and regulation of payment service banks. Nigerian Stock Exchange suspends trading in shares of 6 quoted companies as sell pressure persists. Brent to rise to $80 per barrel before the end of 2018. This is Business Express coming to you on the network service of the NTA. I am Muplang Dakok, and this edition will also be looking at audit reforms and the budgetary process. A lot has happened in the financial sector of the economy in the last 24 hours, with the bulk coming from the half-year report of the Apex Bank. We are starting with the liquidity ratio requirements, where the regulator found 3 banks culpable. The 3 banks failed to meet the 30% liquidity ratio requirement of the CBN, even as investigations revealed prevalence of major foreign exchange malpractices in the banking industry. The CBN, in its 2018 half-year economic review, indicated slight improvements in the bank's financial health, lifted by sustained recovery in macroeconomic conditions, as reflected by the 1.9% and 1.5% gross domestic product GDP growth rates recorded in the first quarter and second quarter of the year. The improvement notwithstanding, examination of banks' foreign exchange activities during the period revealed prevalence of malpractices, reflecting pressure on management to generate more foreign exchange revenues. And still on the half-year report, banks have paid back 6.8 billion naira excess charges to their customers in the first half of 2018. The amount was 6% lower when compared to 7.21 billion naira returned to customers in the first half of 2017. The report said the bank received 1,439 complaints from consumers of financial services in half quarter of 2018 compared to 1,141 in the corresponding period of 2017. The complaints were mainly in respect of excess charges, frauds, dishonored guarantees, and advocacy groups are calling on the leadership of the National Assembly to expressly transmit the past audit bill to President Muhammadu Buhari for his assent. This is with a view to help complement the anti-corruption fight of the federal government. What is the audit bill and its import to the economy? Let's find out in this report.
The audit law, known as the Audit Ordinance Act of 1956, remains the operational guideline for the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. On March 1, the Nigerian Senate passed for concurrence the Federal Audit Service Commission Bill 2018. It was earlier passed by the House of Representatives. Advocacy groups under the auspices of Friends of Democracy during a citizens and media consultative dialogue forum on the audit functions in Nigeria noted that an audit act will ensure the independence of the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation.
The session reiterates the importance of the current audit bill as it addresses the major setbacks of the existing legal frameworks. The session realizes that civil society groups and the media have a crucial role to play in the budget and audit process, yet inadequate capacity to engage stakeholders on the budget and audit process because of inadequate information available.
The audit bill, when passed into law, they say will also bring about improved accountability in the government processes, enable performance and efficiency in public spending, as well as insulate the office and its officials from political manipulations and interference.
Issues have come up that the office is constrained. They can't, do those functions because they are not codified. They don't have the mandate. So the current bill is trying to expand the scope of the Office of the General and its functions and giving it additional powers to enhance its effectiveness.
For many, the bill is very essential in preventing the misuse of public funds.
That report sets the stage for our discussion this afternoon, and Benjamin Ekeyi, a member of the civil society who also coordinates the Legislative Resource Initiative, is the expert to discuss the audit bill, which is on its 9th journey to the National Assembly. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Can you please tell us some more about the audit bill?
The audit bill is a bill that has been initiated by the National Assembly and Office of the Auditor General for the Federation to revolutionize the job of the Audit Office, to strengthen the Auditor General's office, to make the Auditor General perform his jobs independently and autonomously. It's meant to also repeal the existing audit ordinance of 1956, which is old and obsolete, and also bring the audit office to contemporary terms. Basically, that's what the audit bill is all about.
Okay, so can you give us some of the functions of the Office of the Auditor General?
By the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended, 1999 as amended, the Auditor General's office has a responsibility to audit the accounts of all MDAs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay.
And to see if the monies they have been spent according to what the National Assembly has appropriated. Now, his report is submitted back to the National Assembly through the Public Accounts Committee. And the National Assembly is supposed to look at this report. The Public Accounts Committee look at the report and submit back to plenary. So the Auditor General's office is a very important office in the audit process and in the anti-corruption fight in Nigeria.
Okay. So this quest for reforms in the audit process has been championed by the federal government.
Yes.
Would you say is only applicable to the federal government?
Not at all. Okay. For me, I feel that everything that the federal government does should trickle down to the states and even the local governments. For your information, there are in every state Auditor General for the state, and in some states they have even Auditor Generals for local governments. So this reform is supposed to trickle down to all the states. So it's not a federal government or a federal level thing alone. Because if we have accountability and transparency at the federal level and we don't have at the state and local government level, we have a problem.
Okay, so how are the states and the local governments responding to these reforms?
Fantastic. A couple of years ago, we had an interaction with Auditor Generals for states and local governments. And they are also concerned about the fact that they are handicapped. You see, what the current Audit Ordinance Act does is to limit the functions of the Auditor General and makes him answerable to the executive. He cannot employ his own staff. He does not have money as at when he wants. And this is also applicable to the auditors of the states, auditors in the states and the local government. So they have actually come to say, look, we also want this. We also want a situation where we can freely do our jobs to enhance accountability and improve the fight against corruption. So I think I can confidently tell you that it's something that they also want to happen.
So why are these reforms taking so long?
Fantastic. I think it's a little bit of bureaucracy and a little bit of information that needs to be sent. We need to do a lot more advocacy.
Okay.
At our interaction recently, we realized that very few people, a lot of people are aware of the budget process, but very few people are aware of the audit process. So after the National Assembly has passed the budget, yes, we have seen the budget has been passed, and everybody goes home and sit down. Now, what happens after that budget is passed? How was that money spent? Very few people are concerned about that process. And so we, as a civil society and as Nigerians, we need to do more, to talk more. And this is why it is so slow. It is taking so much time, because there is no much noise about it. When the budget is in the National Assembly, everybody is coming. It's National Assembly that is delaying us. National Assembly is delaying us. But what about the audit process? So this is one of the reasons why it is so slow. We need to do more advocacy. We need to also engage with the necessary people. The National Assembly, for instance, it took so long for this bill to go through the National Assembly. And that's understandable, because we have two houses and we need to harmonize this bill before we send it to the president for assent. So I think a little bit of bureaucracy, a little bit of misinformation, and perhaps more advocacy from the civil society will help to do that. All
right, let's talk about the role of audit in the budgetary process. You mentioned it briefly.
Yes.
Yeah.
The budget process is incomplete when there is no feedback. It's a process. It's not a one-way thing. So we have the drafting stage, we have the legislative stage, we have the implementation stage, and then we have the audit stage. So when the budget has been drafted and sent to the National Assembly passes it, and it has been implemented, then there is an audit process. So the audit process is supposed to feed back into the next budget. And that places the audit process as a very important process in the entire budget process. No, if I give Ministry A 500,000 naira and they spend 350,000 naira and cannot account for 150,000 naira, I have no reason in next year to give them another 500,000, or if they ask for more. So this is where the audit process is very, very important. We need to see how much you have used so that we can give you more or less. And we need to see that you have actually used it very well. We need to see that the 3 E's are there. Efficiency, it must be efficient, it must be economic, you must have used all this money the right way.
Okay. So what do you see happening if the president doesn't assent to the bill before the end of 2018?
I don't want to be pessimistic.
Okay.
I want to be very optimistic that this audit bill is going to complement the anti-corruption fight of government. And I think this is where the position that the president would look at it from. I don't want to look at it that the president will not assent to it. I trust that President Muhammad Buhari, who is an advocate of anti-corruption, would assent to it. But if he doesn't, perhaps it raises issues on the audit bill. It's going to be a major setback for us, because you know what happens? What happens is that when a bill is not passed and assented to in the lifetime of the assembly, it goes back to the process of first reading, second reading, third reading, and passage and harmonization again. And perhaps the issues that would make it impossible for the president to assent to it, maybe issues that we need, maybe very critical issues. Nobody is perfect. And the legislative drafting process is very, very technical. And so we don't envisage that will happen. I am very optimistic that this bill was properly worked on, it was thoroughly worked on, and the president would assent to it.
Okay. Lastly, do you see governors giving support, governors of states, of course, giving support to this bill?
It's going to be, I must be very frank with you, it's going to be a bit difficult. It's going to be difficult to get governors to fully support this, because like they say, I cannot empower you to come and question me, because that's what they are going to be doing. But if we do a lot of advocacy and let them realize that, look, this thing we are talking about is the money of the public, and it will also enhance your own work and your credibility too. I think we would get some support from the governors eventually. It's going to be difficult, I must confess, but I'm sure we'll get there.
All right. Thank you very much. We've been speaking with Benjamin Ekei. He's a member of the civil society. We've been speaking with him on the audit bill.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us on the program
It's my
today.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. As the back and forth continues over new minimum wage, Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, is asking civil servants to form cooperatives across ministries, departments, and agencies to enable them jointly address issues bordering on their welfare. He said he is championing this cause as a means to whittle down the effects of challenging times to enable them prepare for the future.
By way as an enabler. And what do I mean in this regard? If you are talking of mass housing, which is again another objective of government, and is open for partnership for PPP, government, the appropriate ministry should give the land. There shouldn't be too much difficulty to have the land. Once the land is made available, I think the first capital in that direction is given. And then I believe the cooperatives will come together, harness resources, put resources together, and they make for the real development of such land. And I think not just giving the land, enough access, road, infrastructure, basic infrastructure, have to be provided. So all these put together will amount to enough support and enough encouragement for cooperatives to do more on their part to generate resources, either on private, PPP arrangement or on whatever arrangement.
General of the Federation charged staff of the Treasury to engage in meaningful ventures within the provisions of the law to improve their personal economies. The Central Bank of Nigeria on Thursday issued guidelines for licensing, regulation, and operation of payment service banks, PSBs, in the country. The Director of Financial Policy and Regulation Department of the Apex Bank, Kevin Amuga, said the guidelines were in furtherance of the Apex Bank's efforts to leverage the technology to improve and promote financial inclusion, enhance access to financial services to the rural poor, low-income earners, and financially excluded in the society. In line with the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, NFIs, the CBN seeks to ensure over 80% of the bankable adults in Nigeria have access to financial services by 2020. The regulator said the latest regulations are to provide for the licensing and operations of PSBs in the country, to utilize the mobile and digital channels to enhance financial inclusion and stimulate economic activities at the grassroots through financial services. The surging energy market sentiment could perhaps surpass expectations as Goldman Sachs argues in a report that the loss of supply from Iran combined with thin spare capacity and resilient oil demand will push prices back up. The investment bank has reiterated its forecast for Brent to hit $80 per barrel by the end of the year. Oil prices have fallen around 15% over the last month, and concerns about oversupply have rushed back. OPEC and the US are both adding enormous volumes of fresh supply, threatening to create a bear market for crude. However, Goldman Sachs says that when digging into the data, demand doesn't seem to have changed all that much. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation says it has signed a 6-month crude for product swap agreement, otherwise known as direct sale, direct purchase, that's DSDP, with a renowned international oil company for the supply of premium motor spirits, PMS, also known as petrol. In a statement in Abuja, NNPC said this latest agreement would represent 20% of NNPC's total premium motor spirit PMS supply under the DSDP arrangement, which allows the corporation to exchange crude oil with international oil traders for imported petroleum products over a period of time. It is part of measures to sustain the robust supply of petroleum products across the country, and especially going into the Christmas period and beyond. The Nigerian Stock Exchange has suspended trading on the shares of 6 listed companies for failure to file their relevant financial accounts to the exchange within the stipulated time. The companies are Unity Bank, Fortis Microfinance Bank, Golden Guinea Breweries, Thomas White Nigeria, Multitrex Integrated Foods, and Deep Capital Management Trust. A circular to the dealing members signed by Goods Time Iwen Keha said Listings Regulations Department said that the suspension became necessary following the failure by the companies to comply with the second filing deficiency notification issued them at the expiration of the cure period. And the Nigerian stock market has closed Friday's session, 2nd November 2018, on a bullish note. The all-share index surged 0.37% to close at 32,124.94 basis points and market capitalization at 11.7 trillion naira. Bosede Abel is our guide on how stocks are performing around the globe.
African stock markets started Friday's session on a positive note, with JSE Africa Top 40, Kenya's Nairobi SE, Tunidex, and Namibia overall posting gains, while Ghana's GSE Composite Index started on a negative. Equities markets in China posted gains on Friday, encouraged by comments from U.S. President Donald Trump on trade negotiation between China and the United States. Shanghai Composite gained 2.7% to close 2,676.48. Japan's Nikkei added 2.56% to close 22,243.66, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index surged 4.21% to close 26,486.35. U.S. equities showed positive signs with higher opening Friday morning, digesting potential progress in trade negotiations between China and U.S. Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite Index made gains at the open. European equities also opened higher on the back of China and U.S. trade negotiation, with FTSE, DAX and CAC posting gains.
Thank you, Bosede. The Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, in the month of October stood at 56.8 index points, indicating expansion in the manufacturing sector for the 19th consecutive month. The index grew at a faster rate when compared to the index in the previous month of the 14th of the month. Of the 14 subsectors surveyed, 13 reported growth in the review month. The primary metal subsector declined in the review month. And that's Business Express for today. Remember to send us your feedback via email, businessexpress@nta.gov.ng. You can also reach us through our Twitter, and the handle is NTA News Now. And don't forget to use the hashtag BizX showing on your screen. Until we come your way again, I am Muplang Dakok. See you next week.